Morning. This is the 2nd of March. Welcome back to another edition of the Small Talk. This time around, we'll be talking about a familiar topic, SimplyGo. So this is something we touched on 2 weeks ago with Ku and Harizwan. We had very interesting insights back then. But I think today I wanted to bring in a different viewpoint into the discussion on this table here. Not just from an engineering viewpoint, but also from the designer angle as well. Maybe in the future from product POV. But today, yeah, I have two very interesting speakers, and I'll bring them in to introduce them shortly. So before that, just to build in some context first for folks who have not heard about SimplyGo, or maybe you're not fully up to date in terms of what happened. So SimplyGo, basically this SimplyGo itself is the next iteration or next generation of the EZ-Link cards, or that travel card that folks have been using in Singapore. And if you're not aware, right, there's actually two iterations going on right now. The second gen EZ-Link card, which is the older one, and SimplyGo is actually considered as the third gen one. Okay, so that's what's happening right now. And essentially, the government, or well, LTA, is looking at deprecating the older version of the EZ-Link card, the second gen one. Of course, this would mean like stuff like cost savings because they don't have to support two different systems at once. But the entire move itself was fraught with certain issues, like on the right side, in the screen that I'm showing over here, the SimplyGo app itself, being overwhelmed because the load was simply too large at the earlier part of this migration, people using this application. And I think a big part of the contention that people had towards this entire move was that it didn't feel like an upgrade. I mean, if it's a side grade, it's fine, but to folks, it felt like a downgrade. When you compare the new cards and the old cards, you can see that the SimplyGo card didn't support all the features that the previous card had before. Under motoring, you can see that it doesn't provide for that service. But the older cards, they actually fulfill all the check marks across all of the different services. And if you compare to different payment systems around the world, again, EZ-Link card, you can see, it does every single thing. But SimplyGo itself, it doesn't do the basic stuff that the previous system could do. Like, for example, being able to show the fare at the gantries. So I think that's something that perhaps, for the older generation, especially like folks who perhaps like top up like huge amounts into their card at one point of time, right? And they want to see like when this balance lapse, right? So it's easier for them to see, directly at the gantry itself. So this was something, that people had, disagreements with because this feature basically wasn't there. It felt like a downgrade. So this entire thing was a huge controversy, during the time of January, and it all culminated at the period where I think in a very rare movement, the government, did a U-turn and decided to let people exchange their new SimplyGo cards back into using EZ-Link, the previous second gen EZ-Link cards. So yeah, I think this is like perhaps like maybe the first time for me. Like I think in my 30-ish years, I'm not gonna say my age, but 30-ish years of my life in Singapore, where I think we see like a huge U-turn like this. So I think based off of this, well, we're not gonna maybe comment too much about the entire U-turn itself. But I wanted to get the take from that few designers earlier on their takes, in terms of how this entire SimplyGo migration could have been done better. So I'd like to bring them in. All right, let me bring them in from the backstage. So we have Hui Ping as well as Jing Wen. All right, let me take away my slides. So yeah, both of them, they are product designers currently in this very nice place called Hubble. So I worked at Hubble before, so I also certify it's a good place to work at. And yeah, both of them as product designers in that company. And I think Hui Ping yourself also recently I saw your LinkedIn update. You've been promoted to a senior product designer.
Yes.
Congrats. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. But let's get into the questions itself. I'd like to start off with this one question. I'd like to hear from your POV, like what went wrong with the SimplyGo migration. And I mean, I can kick that off a little bit, possibly more from a user angle, which I mentioned just now. I think the one big part that I didn't agree with, okay, sorry, I say as a user, but I feel like maybe the intuition comes from myself as a engineer, which is that when you want to get people to a new system, right? You usually you want it to be an upgrade, lah. So it felt very weird that it was a downgrade. It felt like it wasn't fully well planned. Like an engineer, probably you would have want to make sure you have feature priority first thing. I think that for me was the biggest problem. Like that just what led to the user UX problem for most users who complain about it online. How about you folks? Like, what do you all think about this implementation? Like, what could have went better with it?
You pick
Yeah.
first.
Uh, Personally, I've been using a bank payment, so I've been paying my phone and I haven't been tagging it to SimplyGo. So when like the first launch of it happened, it didn't really impact me because I was already using the feature that they wanted to push for. And then like the backlash happened, and like after researching, it seems like, yeah, like you mentioned, there's not sufficient planning for the transition. Like the runway was too short for the transition for the users. Yeah. Do you anything to add?
That's interesting actually. The that you mentioned the runway is actually short. Like okay, I don't want to dispute you there. Just to be clear,
Mm-mm.
because I also did some research on the prior what do you call it, the iteration. So the thing is, in our 20-30 year history, is it 30 years now? Since 1990. Oh wow, it has been 30 years. Uh, in that history, right, of this entire EasyLink card system, right? Actually, the other hold on, let me bring period itself, the other systems actually also kind of the same amount. Like let's say from January to June, right? Uh, you have around 6 months. So for the previous card systems, it was also around that same time gap itself. In migrating from system to system, lah. The runway itself seems. In fact, if anything, the Simply Go had a very huge runway. They had 6 years even. Yeah.
Mhm. Or
How about
like
Hui Ping?
the runway between like the transition, I think they plan 6 months for the conversion between the existing EasyLink card and the new SimplyGo, right? Because I was reading other
Mm,
articles and like they were saying it might have been too sudden for users and they feel like they need to rush to convert, which then resulted in like the sudden surge of people queuing to
mm,
exchange their cards. And then I think there were like some issues with the conversion as well, which can create pain points. And also
mm,
with the downloads of the app, then there were like crashes of the app. Like they couldn't successfully perform the actions that they were expected to do. So I think like
mm.
these pain points kind of accumulated and added to like the frustration that they already had, which was the downgrade in features that they were
Just
going to have.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree. It was a lot of small missteps that built up to one big frustration.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
mm,
It's quite interesting because like I was thinking more from like the service design point of view. So, do you remember like watching all those Simply Go ads with the earworm song that they keep playing on and on, even when you're at MRT, they also kept playing that song. So I felt that that was like their way of introducing Simply Go system. But I think at that point of time, it just felt as if it was like oh, okay, I can just tap and go with my watch and stuff like that. It's a flashy kind of way to tap in and tap out. Um, I went to look back at the video. I didn't realize that that they actually said multiple other values of the product, which is that they can top up from the app itself, right? So at that point, the takeaway that I had was that oh, I can just tap using my phone and my watch, you know. So I think at that point of time, it was like the introduction to the whole system was just very like at the back of my head kind of thing. It wasn't very in my face that it's gonna implement strictly to only just Simply Go. So I think like what Jing Wen said, it was very like abrupt that oh okay, I need to convert it to Simply Go now. Yeah. So I think in terms of um service design, the introduction of the product, the value of it, I think could be done better. So what exactly is service design, right? So it is like a planning and arranging of like the people, the infrastructure, the communication methods to improve its quality and the interaction between like the end users and the service providers. So it is basically trying to make like a seamless experience rather than just a physical product. In this case, it's just Simply Go. Yeah. So um, just like a backstory also, I was helping my mom to top up or to upgrade to Simply Go. My mom is about 60 plus. So at that point of time, I went to the ticketing kiosk, right? And then there was a notice. It was like a printed A4 paper, by the way. It simply said, concession cards, you don't have to convert it to SimplyGo, but any cards with the CPass logo has to be upgraded. So I was looking at my mom's card. I was like, okay, this is a concession card, but it has the CPass logo. So what does that mean? Like, do I have to upgrade it or not? Yeah, so I was very confused. And then I asked the service staff, and then they tried to help me to upgrade it in their system, right? Then they produced like an error receipt. So at that point of time, they were also very confused. So it just felt as if like the whole onboarding experience wasn't like very much prepared for this search. Yeah. So like you said also, like the downloads weren't also prepared for the search as well. Yeah,
I think that built into that's something that actually I haven't experienced about. I think it's cool that you are sharing this anecdote from yourself, like helping your parent to do that upgrade. Yeah, I never saw it as, I thought on the ground always the what I said upgrade was actually quite smooth. At least the process, it sounded like, just a bring your card in, I'll give you a new card, and hey, you're on your way now. But yeah, I guess reality didn't sink in like that as well. But that's it. You also mentioned another thing about the earworm, the advertisement. I know what
yes.
you mean. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna say the celebrity's name, but it's like two celebrities dancing around with a bunch of people. Something like that, like, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's interesting you mentioned that, because now that you say this ad, right? You talk about this ad. Um, the thing is that I never comprehended at that point of time that SimplyGo was like a different system. It was I just thought it was like kind of like it's EasyLink card with, hey, you can use it on your watch and your phone now. Yeah, it just never simply clicked like that. It just felt more like an extension, like, we are just adding in new features. So that did caught me aback, where suddenly, like, hey, this SimplyGo card needs to be the new normal. Every other card needs to be removed as well. Yeah, that did felt, now that you mentioned about this ad, that did felt weird lah. Like how they push it out in the first place. It wasn't well differentiated.
Exactly. I think
Mm.
the ad actually focused on the point about tapping in using the phone and the watch. But actually the value from my point of view, like the value of it was the topping up on the go, right? Because
Mm.
my pinpoint is that I didn't even know that I need to top up, and usually the MRT is quite far away for me to top it up. So it's
Mm.
really, really good that I have it on the phone. So that is
Mm.
really, I would say, in my point of view, the pinpoint that SimplyGo actually supports. Yeah, but I think
Mm.
also they did mention that SimplyGo doesn't really support other methods like paying for ERP, if I'm not wrong. So there are a lot of like different
Mm.
things that they started to not support, which I think in that sense it kind of amplified the questioning of how much value SimplyGo actually has. Yeah,
Mm.
because I mean personally I'm just someone who takes public transport. I don't really have a car,
Mm.
so I don't really see that as a pinpoint. But I think those people who actually just want like a super card kind of thing to have everything in one, it
Mm.
is really, I can understand from their point of view how it could have been very, very troublesome for them lah. Yeah.
Mm. How would this translate in terms of? Oh, go ahead, Jing Wen, sorry.
I just wanted to add that I think like the main gripe about this for like the public is that why do you fix something that is not a problem, which is like you're showing the graph that it supported all the functions, and then now they're like removing features. So to them is they're losing a key thing that was already there in the first place, and now they have to download an app to go in to view their balances, which is I think something that they are quite heavy about.
How does that translate in terms of the UX? What do you call it? Like design principles. In your day-to-day work. Would this be? I guess it would be considered as a faux, like a anti. Is it what do you call it? Anti rule, or is it breaking a rule? Breaking a rule.
For
Or
this,
are
right?
they? Hmm, go ahead. Go ahead.
I guess like maybe not understanding the users enough in terms of UX research. So I think I felt that the research could have been more. Okay, I want to dig down a bit deeper. So they actually did a UX research. Okay, so they actually surveyed
Oh,
1,000 people. Yeah,
I
so
agree. Yeah,
1,000 people, okay, yes, it's a decent sample size considering that they actually like kind of talk to adults, children, elderly people, right? So okay, the sample size looks okay. So what they actually did was they actually give account-based cards to try for every month, for a month. So they actually tried the beta version of SimplyGo, if I'm not wrong. And then interestingly, there were feedbacks that okay, they see the value of SimplyGo, they see the value of the topping up portion, but there were also feedback about them wanting to see the value, the card value. So it was already mentioned prior to launching the SimplyGo app that this is a problem. But so in that sense, okay, what will you do, right? Because there is people who are saying that they want this, and then there's people who see that there's value to it. So how do we balance these two things, right? So in my point of view, it's really to evaluate the feature parity. So now the machines actually do capture the value, but in terms of the the phone SimplyGo app, it's not as immediate. Yeah, so we got to kind of balance how severe it is to remove this feature. And in the first place, why do they even want to see the value, right? Maybe it could be a psychological thing, like they want instant gratification. Like for elderly people, I think they don't have the, the familiarity of seeing their money in a digital form, right? So just simply showing the card value would have been good enough to kind of reward them that, okay, I'm paying this value. Yeah, so it's like that feedback that we're getting as a user that uh, my money is gone kind of thing. Yeah, that's just my take. Yeah.
and I think that's very true. That's kind of like the traditional system of I'm using a service A, I get deducted, I get debited for that activity, and this is my remaining amount. I can definitely see like it being a bit more jarring for folks. Yeah, you're not familiar with this different like digital money. Okay, it's not even digital money. It's kind of like digital payment schemes lah, where there's there's this cloud somewhere where it says, hey, you know, you are own this amount of money to the bank now. Because I guess for most of us, Simply Go would be using that credit card and paying, and then you're charged like 1 month later instead. But definitely, yeah, I think I guess what's being said here is the empathy isn't there. Like the feedback was given that, hey, you know, we want to see the value after we, you know, tap out from the gantry. But I guess this feedback maybe wasn't uh, uh, maybe taken as equal importance as other feedback lah.
Yeah.
Which this is actually something I've not known about. I know about the user research, but I didn't know that there was like pointed feedback towards this. Yeah, this is feels like a big miss lah.
Yeah.
Towards your own products, like when you guys do your own user research, do you all get like similar instance? I mean, not saying you're ignore feedback. I'm saying like people giving this feedback, and how do you all dive into this, like understanding whether it makes sense or not?
Similar things.
Admittedly, I think for our products, we still lack quite a bit of user research, being able to test our products with the actual users. Like, I think it's due to like the structure and how we approach products as well. So I think one thing that I can relate to is more of how there are certain assumptions that we make whenever we design certain things. And to us, the solution is actually there. So in this case, for SimplyGo, the ability to check balances has been made available in the MRTs where they can tap their cards at some kiosk to check for their balances. And technically, users are able to do that, but how they actually behave is completely different from what LTA has expected, which is quite similar to our case, where there have been a few instances where we go down to site to view how users behave and how they interact with our apps. We see that their concerns are completely different from what the assumptions that we have made. So in that sense, I think this is the disparity that if we don't get to watch how users think and behave, yeah, which admittedly I think is a chicken and egg thing. Once we have the opportunity, then we can work on it. But then probably in the beginning phases, it's more of a testing area for us. Yeah.
Got it. It sounds like, yeah, chicken and egg. It sounds like you always need to start off with a blank canvas. You're not sure where you're going, but once you get the user feedback, I'm guessing this is where you'll get started on. Okay, then how do we improve it? Get on the right track, lah, so to speak.
But I guess for
Yeah, there's a
LTA is more costly. It's like LTA is a hard launch of everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a part that perhaps, okay, as a member of a public and also as an engineer, I'm also slightly confused by, which is that because if they had like 6 years of running this entire SimplyGo program, I would think that along like what you guys have suggested so far, they would have a trove of user data. I'm not saying user research, but at least data towards how people reacted towards this new system. Like I'm going to make a big guess that probably you have younger folks. When they jump on the system, they probably won't go with the older EasyLink card system. They'll just go with credit card because they already have a credit card. It's convenient, just get started there. And they never had the entire show fare gantry thing. It's okay. But then for the older folks, probably like most of them wouldn't have migrated. And I think that data would have meant something to them. I think it would have been good for them to also check that. Yeah. Okay, but agreeable as well. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. Actually, so there were actually like surveys done, or rather they extracted data points on how many people are actually using SimplyGo in the first place. So actually majority, 64% lah, actually were already on SimplyGo. But I think at that point of time, even when you get the stats, right, we don't just stop there. So as a UX designer, we kind of always want to get user feedback and iterate the product. It's not to say that, oh, majority of the users, we actually can't stop there, right? So 64 users, okay. Adoption rate, 64, okay. But why are the rest of the percentage not taking up, right? Because the idea is that if you want to kind of implement it like a hard launch kind of thing, we have to know why in the first place they aren't adopting it. And why in the first place 64% are already on it before it was hard launched. Yeah, so it's like all these kind of questions that I felt that even if they do the users study, right, they can't just stop there. I don't know whether they continue, actually, to be fair. So yeah, I felt that there must be a continuous feedback that they should be getting. Yeah.
I just want to throw in there that sounds a lot like you're saying, okay, I'm just teasing you, but just saying that it sounds a lot like you're saying that product designers are half glass empty people than half glass full. Because you're saying instead of focusing on the 64% success, hey, let's focus on the 30+%. That's not migrating yet.
I guess it really depends on the end goal. Because if the end goal is really to get 100% adoption rate, then definitely you have to focus on the other side, right? Yeah.
No, but okay, I'm just joking over there. But I do agree. I think 30+% is a sizable amount. I mean, given that this is a system that everyone use on the day-to-day basis, right? With millions of users daily, I believe, I think it makes sense that 30% is going to be already in the numbers of millions already if you're looking at millions of users a day. So I think that definitely is not something that they can disregard. Also, given that it's already 6 years, and if 30% of the users haven't naturally migrated, I think that is a big question mark why they haven't moved. Yeah.
To be honest, I was very confused by the difference between like bank payment and SimplyGo. Until like this round, when I did more research, then I finally realized what's the difference. Like the clarity, like Hui Ping mentioned in the beginning, is that it wasn't very clear what SimplyGo is exactly. And now that I mentioned it's a EasyLink, it's actually the same EasyLink, then I'm like, oh, didn't know at all. Yeah.
It didn't feel like it had legs to walk on, right? In the sense that like it felt like we weren't gaining anything. I think this is maybe also a small sentiment I got from the previous cards. So okay, just to ask, are you familiar with the transit link card, fare card? Okay, again, I'm gonna show my slides again. Hold on. I'm sorry, maybe I'm like a little bit of like showing like my, okay, I'm not boomer, like, but I'm a very middle age, not middle age, sorry, slightly on the middle side, millennial. But okay, I'm asking about this one. Have you seen this transit link fare cards before?
Oh no, I don't think
Please
so.
say yes. Please say yes.
No.
You're that old.
EasyLink, I only saw the EasyLink card.
Okay, EasyLink, you guys might have seen this. Huh? you have never seen this card. Like it was always in this design.
No,
Oh no. Okay, okay. I'm sorry, audience. I think I'm a bit too
revealing your
old.
age.
It, but I don't think we're that far in terms of age. I'm not that old either. I'm not even halfway through my to my 40s. But okay, maybe just to like to the point that Jing Wen mentioned, right? I agree with that. You know, in terms of the migration, then didn't have leaks as compared to the past, because this fare card, right? This older fare card, it was very clear that you know you were migrating from this first system to a second system, where you had this physical card. You always have to slot in into this hole in the gantry. You might have seen that before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
I think
Wow,
Yeah.
so. I
very
think
long
so.
ago.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's very, very old, very long ago. But when you change to this, it was a quality of life upgrade that everyone I think, at least for myself, I loved it. Like just you can keep it in your wallet. You don't even have to take it out of your wallet. Just tap your wallet on that entire thing, and then the machine, right? And it just beeps and you go through the gantry. I think that one had more legs where people felt that it makes more sense to upgrade. You know, there is something that I get out of it. Okay, to be honest, I'm not sure how they got people to migrate from this first gen to second gen in a pre-social media era, but it worked. No one complained much back then. Maybe because social media also wasn't there. But yeah, then this entire Simply Go migration, definitely there was a larger I guess yeah, I will also have that same question, which is yeah, why do I have to migrate? Like it's like same, but maybe slightly different from the provider's angle. Yeah. Okay, but anyway, yeah, just sharing that for fun. Again, older card, they don't recognize it. It makes me feel old.
There.
Okay, but going on to another question. Um, yep. So I wanted to bring this up. Okay, I'm sure this is something that you wouldn't do 99% of the time. But let's say you did it 1% of the time. Like, just want to hear your thoughts on, yeah, under what circumstances would you actually design a system that actually downgrades the performance, the user experience of the user, if ever.
I can't really think of a scenario whereby a designer will intentionally design something bad, other than introducing this concept called dark UX. So it's basically intentionally tricking or manipulating users into taking certain actions that they might not have chosen otherwise. So, like for example, if it could be like a decision in the management that they want to change a pricing model, right? So it's not something that the end user actually have visibility on. And then a possible dark pattern could be that they intentionally make the system laggier, or they started to remove certain features such that they kind of upgrade. They force the people to upgrade to a certain plan. So in the user point of view, it's like, wow, how come I use this feature for so long, then you're removing it from me, right? Yeah, I would say that's more backwards, but in the business point of view, I guess that's um, where they can get money from, because based on the stats, they realize that this feature have more traction. So I guess that's where, situations that features or user experience might be hindered in that sense. Yeah.
How about you? I think that's a very interesting answer. But how about you, Jingwen? I want to hear from everyone first.
wow. I also agree that no designer would intentionally create something that's worse off. But I guess in the reality of like corporations, perhaps the product direction is probably geared towards something else. For example, the cost of upkeeping a certain system is too high and the focus of the company has been steered towards something else, then probably the dark UX would then be switching up the functionalities to be less ideal, such that the users are pushed towards something that is more revenue generating. Yeah, I think pretty much like what Hui Ping has mentioned. Mm.
And
What
would
about
that
you, Hui Ping?
be? Huh? Oh, what about for myself?
Yeah.
Okay, to be honest, I can't recall any specific case, but I can empathize with if that has to happen to any product development team in a company. So I did like prepare before this, and I wrote down a few things lah, which is a couple of ones that I see from a technical angle is for example cost. Cost would be one big thing. If I mean, looking from a business angle, if I have to, let's say, do this migration for all these users, And for some reason, after this migration, the user experience is worse. We expect people to drop off like from this entire, like let's say the user flow, the funnel, right? But the friction is not that big to the point where you actually lose more money from it, right? Then actually it makes some sense from that angle that net you gain something out of it. Of course, yeah, it isn't the best. We should still try to plan to smoothen out like some of these areas that will cause frictions for user lah. And another thing that I guess is a no would be security. If there's like for some reason this like maybe there's a hack that has been there in this web application and people have been abusing it, but it's a big gaping hole that needs to be patched up. I think it should be patched up. Like it's whether it's beneficial to the company or not. I mean, in the end, it has to benefit the user. The perceived UX may be worse for the user, but the overall user experience will be better because I mean things like let's say people leaking information that shouldn't be there. Yeah, that's
Actually,
my
I
take.
realized.
Go ahead.
You mentioned about security, which is very true. Like for perhaps like bank platforms, the UX is not the best because there are security related issues with like bank information, money. So in that sense, we cannot compromise to always have the best UX. But yeah, the hassle is necessary to maintain that level of assurance for the user. Yeah.
Actually, do you mind if I ask like any of these compromises, any examples or stories of these compromises that you have been through? Maybe in this case of better security. Let me think. In our local bank sites, what do we have?
I know.
2FA? No, 2FA is 2FA is needed definitely.
Like those cookies that you see at the bottom, that kind of like takes majority of the page. It really spoils my user experience. And I'm the kind that I don't really accept cookies because I'm quite scared of like data breaching, right? So I will really scroll in that small panel to see my content and just not accept the overlap in that part. So it really depends on the user, I guess. But to me, that disrupts my user experience, but I still just don't want to accept the cookies. Yeah. I get their intention. They're really forcing people to like accept right in your face, but not for me.
Okay, for the one I like to add, it's probably the companies probably don't want to do it as well. If I'm not wrong, I think that's a legal thing. One of two things, GDPR and CCPA. So if you have might not have heard of it before, I think for the audience, GDPR, I believe it's a information security law for the EU region. CCPA, I think, is only in California. I'm not sure why in the States they don't have it for everything, but only in California. But basically, you have this cookie banners, right? If you go to especially global sites, why they always ask you, please accept cookies or you cannot do anything, it's because of that. I agree. It's a bit jarring, but that's the funny thing as well. Okay, I have something to review from an engineering angle on this, which is that actually the banner is good for you. You know why? Because if you don't accept it, sorry, okay, if let's say they don't ask you, right? Actually, they are capturing the cookies in the background without even your. No, the consent itself is just them. It's a law binding the companies to tell them that, hey, do you like? Are you okay consenting us to like put these cookies, save the values in cookies, in your browser? Then of course those might be read by other services. But I guess the thing is that there isn't really like that, what do you call it, like some technical safeguard that's put in place to prevent them from using it. It's just more if they're audited, right, and they are doing that, you'll be like, no, you shouldn't do this. Then someone from the government will maybe fine them or something like, okay, yeah, you'll be fine for GDPR. Yeah, just saying that. Sorry, I looked behind the curtain because I had to do this feature like years ago. Shout out to George if you're listening to this, like one of my PMs in the past. We worked on this for a very long time. It was a very interesting experience. Yeah, but I think that's interesting. For in terms of having to make the friction, like putting the friction there for the users because of extenuating factors like security. Banks, I mean, to think about it, I I don't know. I guess the one thing that I'm maybe kind of annoyed at the start, now I've gotten used to it, is only having one browser open for, like, if you use internet banking, you log in, uh you can't open multiple tabs. And if you try to open a second tab, I think they will just warn you and tell you, no, 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 you can't do this. Please stay on this current tab. Then maybe another thing, again, I think I know it's good, but I dislike it, is there's this 5 minute timer. If you don't do anything, they'll just lock you out automatically. I know it's good, but it's annoying, when you are, let's say you're doing something, you logged into the site, you're doing some calculations at the site, maybe you're just preparing something, and then they're like, they log you out in the background if you didn't take note. Yeah. I don't like it.
But I think there are
Like,
some models that they actually appear to say like, okay, session timeout, do you want to continue your work? So in a way, you can just click and just still proceed. But I do see some that kind of, no, your session timeout, that's it. You have to restart, relog in everything. Yeah, I don't really understand why some allows that, but others don't. But yeah, it's just something to think about. Yes.
I guess perhaps this goes back into what you all talked about earlier on, the user research, and also like getting analytics from users. Probably you'll be able to make that conclusion how users, like for example, I'm guessing for you guys, you'll be very familiar with A/B testing. You could do the A/B test with that model, one without, and then see, like, do more people drop off? Like, I guess the what do you call it? The hypothesis there would be, do substantially more people drop off if we just lock them out automatically without warning? And if that happens, probably, yeah, it makes more sense to go with the model approach. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to another question. So, I guess going into this entire SimplyGo debacle, right? Wanted to understand from your angles on, like, starting from, let's say, the first step of building that product in this entire design life cycle, right, all the way until it's released, right? How does it look like for a designer? How do you plan through this entire thing just to make sure to get like the best user experience for your users? Anyone like to kick this off?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll just take the fun part, I guess. So there are a few steps that a design process we will usually follow through. So UX research is the primary and first step that we need to take. So I would say spending a bulk of your time on UX research will really benefit you in the end, because you are identifying what's your stakeholders' goals, you're understanding what are your users behaving, and really understanding what's the situation, what are the parameters that you're working with. So say for example, for this SimplyGo situation, it might be, I'm not sure, it might be a top-down approach that the management is trying to say that, okay, I want to make sure that in the future, we want to manage the large surge of people who are taking public transport, because cars are expensive now, right? So there will eventually be a large surge in the number of people taking public transport. So if that's the problem that the management is actually telling the team, the product team, for example, that you're managing, then okay, let's dive deeper. Okay, so technology, is that really the solution? Maybe, maybe not. Who can give us the answers? They are the users, right? So what are the users actually currently doing? What kind of, are they already on SimplyGo? Are they even, I don't know, who actually uses coins anymore? I don't know. That is really just even the smallest behaviors that we can actually see that could possibly give us more information about what is a possible solution. So US research, main bulk of it, that will give us the parameters that we're working with, and then eventually ideate properly on what could be the possible solution. Yeah.
I like
Then,
the part.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm going to move on to the next. Yeah.
No, no, go. If I think if there was a next part of a process, please go for it.
Oh, okay. So I guess the ideation round, right? Say for example, you realize that technology or making an app is a possible solution. What's the justification for it? Like, okay, you hear that, say for example, maybe COVID happened. You have the assumption that everyone is on smartphones now. You have the assumption that people are using QR codes. But is it true to all audiences? Are the elderly group actually using an app, because from what I'm observing, they use, like to do your Pay Now, Pay La, right? They actually still use your camera to scan, which that you have to log into the app to actually scan, right? So they thought that there is a universal scanner to do everything. Yeah, which I understand from their point of view, right? Because no one actually taught them that. They just know that, okay, during COVID times, I just need to check in, check out with Trace Together. Yeah, so they don't understand the concept that each app might have their own QR code. So it really depends on how they justify why technology or why SimplyGo, an app, can actually solve the problem and really dig down deep, I feel. Yeah, so that is just other considerations of ideation stage. Yeah. And yeah. So you want to
Jing Wen,
add
you want to
on?
add to that?
Me? Okay. So after ideation, then I guess we will go about reviewing which is the best idea for our solution based on the parameters that we've mentioned, including like the corporate, like the business goals. And then if there are some ideas that are pretty similar and that need testing, then it would encompass like further probably mocking up of the user flows and then sending it into testing, which then allows us to get actual feedback on which one is more feasible and the pros and cons of each before they send it off to development. Yeah.
Just to touch a bit on when you mentioned testing, how do you test that mock-up? Is it something like, again, you do your user interviews, you show them like, let's say this multiple designs, and you say like, what do you think about it? Is it something like this or different?
Usually we will gather, for example, there's solution A and solution B. We will gather two separate groups. And okay, I think there are a few types of testing that we can do. One would be with the same user group, we give them solution A and B, getting them to run through like a prototype of how they will behave and the thought processes that they have when they are engaging with the prototype. And another one would be, I think, more similar to A/B testing, which is two user groups and learning how they behave and extracting the results from both. So I think from here we will be able to see how effective our assumptions, whether assumptions were right, and how they behave, and that would further shape the product down the line before it gets ready to be shipped to the development team. Yeah.
I see. Got it. Yeah, I think that's something that I might have seen before. Is this something that you all do in your day-to-day work as well? Oh. Just curious. No, it's okay if it's not. I mean, it's also a bit. Sometimes it might be also hard lah to gather the group. I get that as well.
We
I
do
mean,
that
we do it internally
more.
and externally. It really depends on who we can reach out to. I think generally,
Mm.
like definitely if your end users are consumers, you can ask your dad, you can ask your family members, kind of thing.
Mm.
Easier reach. If it comes to businesses where your stakeholders are actually from management level, it can be hard to capture that time. Yeah, that's I think a lot of B2B designers, one of the problems that they face. Yeah, so I think relationship building and networking will really help a lot. Yeah.
Mm. Wait, you mentioned about B2B designers? Is this process that different from B2B and a B2C and maybe even a B2G? Okay, B2G maybe is a little bit far.
I think for B2B, probably it's because it's harder to get in contact with the actual users because they are pretty far away. Our usual contact point would probably be the sales team or the management team of the clients. So technically, they are not the end users. End users are like their staff. So in that sense, having for B2Cs, it will be easier to get feedback because we have a direct source of interaction or like channel to the consumers. So from there, I think that's where the disparity comes from. Mm.
It, just
And
go ahead. Yeah.
sorry, just to add, I think like for the thing about user testing is that as UX designers, we try to explore an idea. So in a way, whenever we conduct testing, it has to be as neutral as possible, where we ask very explorative questions, where we let the users expand like why they think a certain way and how would they behave. So as much as possible, we try not to be leading in how we structure these tests. Yeah, which I think it might be not very intuitive whenever we conduct, like when you're asking a question, usually you will want to find out an answer that you already have in mind. So that part is, I think, might be new to most people.
That's a very good insight, and I guess that somewhat applies beyond, let's say, like in terms of what's that? Talking to doing your user research, try and make sure you set questions or doing your interviews without leading them on. I'm guessing for many other things in life that probably has to be practiced as well. But interesting to see it mentioned here too. Maybe also just now, just before we jump off too far, just want to also acknowledge. I think one thing Hui Ping mentioned about, I think, doing user research and whether like the knee-jerk reaction of always trying to find like a technology based solution to it, like maybe that's also not the best way around. I hope this doesn't rub off people. I mean, I don't think you're, but let's say like other people listening this in a different way. But I do see that sometimes lah, which is that, oh, we want to build this, we must have an app. Then the question will come up, don't you just like, maybe a website would just work, like you don't have to go that far. I think, yeah, solving the root of a problem or what the user really wants is the main focus, not the technology lah. But yeah, it's a problem that different people will commit. I mean, myself as an engineer, sometimes I might also commit that along the lines of like being alert by like some sexy form of technology that I want to use it, but yeah, it might not be the best user experience lah eventually. Okay, touching on the final question that I have for you guys today. Okay, so before going into this, probably also might be good to share this diagram that I've also shared with you all before. So this essentially for any companies or any products lah. I don't even want to say technology. Like I think for any product, any company that's introducing a new product, possibly you would want to follow like a migration pattern. And there's basically a few ways of doing it. I think the one that most people are familiar with is probably the Big Bang migration, which is essentially take out the whole older system and just put in a new system. And then there's other forms of sort of parallel migration patterns. Either you incrementally like introduce a new system, or you just introduce the new system all at one go, and then essentially do the switch like sometime later. Then the parallel one also, like the incremental portion, there's also like split into two parts lah, but it's somewhat muddled up in real life. Yeah. Okay, now with this introduction of this concept to users, that you can do it different ways. You don't have to do it big bang all in one shot. You can do it slowly so that it's not introducing a lot of friction for the user. But I'm keen to understand, like I think from a engineer to designer, right? Do you guys get involved in this often? And how do you influence like stakeholders to that this is the right way of doing it? If you want, I can start with the engineering. Or go ahead. Yes.
Actually, recently one of our products have been migrated to a newish design and system, but unfortunately, we haven't been involved in any of the discussions. So it was more of like we were notified that this is happening, and I think similar. It's probably an incremental parallel adoption where we slowly phased out the old system, and then there was a fixed end date of when that system would be like disabled for the current users. Yeah, but I guess this is a part of UX that I never really thought about. That there's a whole new realm of migration UX. It was pretty interesting to read the article that you sent over.
How about?
I felt that, yeah, the ideally, yes, we should be involved heavily in this. Just thinking about SimplyGo, right, I felt that they probably did incremental adoption, because they didn't cut off the using function completely, right? So they kind of tried to introduce it slowly with the advertisements and whatnot. But I wouldn't say that it's like very obvious. So, say for example, in my opinion, a successful incremental adoption that the government apps, the government actually launched, is parking.sg. If you remember, right, when you actually did, when you have, like, when you park a car, you have to poke this card, punch some holes to kind of pay your parking lot, right? So at that point of time, everyone was okay with the pain point of like rushing back to their car to kind of extend the parking coupon. But when parking.sg actually came out, yes, it solved that problem, because you can just, while you're eating, you suddenly realize that you kind of want to extend your stay there, right? So you can just simply add 30 more minutes top up. But I would say it might be the main reason why people actually adopted parking.sg naturally was because, do you know that they actually refund per minute dollars if you actually don't make use of them? So your target audience are Singaporeans. They obviously want to save money, right? So I think that was a very, very brilliant way of introducing a new app without actually throwing shade at the coupon format. Like, it's okay if you still use the coupon, but eventually, yes, they want everyone to be on board with parking.sg first. Then eventually they'll phase it out if they see that most people are already on parking.sg. So I felt that approach was very, very good. And maybe SimplyGo, they wanted to try that approach, but I think it might not be as obvious of what the value actually is. Yeah.
I like that you mentioned about parking dash, and I just want to say that I felt a little bit silly for earlier part when you mentioned it and nodded, and then I realized I never used it before because I don't drive. Okay, but beyond that, but yeah, beyond that, I think yeah, the parallel I would draw there would be to, for myself, I would say for SingPass. I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. That's it, not towards the paying side of things, but I think how convenient it was. At the start, I wasn't convinced about it, but my wife, she started using it first. So okay, it's interesting. She's not in tech, but I'm in tech. And then she started using the SingPass app first. Then I started using it after she showed me, and I realized, oh yeah, it's much more simple than like the username password thing. All that I think 2FA as well. There's some 2FA in the past, so it made it much more easier to just use thumbprint. Okay, QR code, blah blah, it's done. Definitely good way of what's that, like similar parking SG, right? Like finding the right reasons to move people across. But I do want to dive in on the little part that maybe this is more contextual to Singaporeans, and I do want to understand. I'm very curious as a Singaporean engineer. I want to know, is it really true, like, in terms of your user research for Singaporeans? Like you mentioned about Singaporeans like to save money. Is that really like a center theme of it?
Okay, in the context of parking.sg, I don't know. But I mean, just I've been to other design workshops organized by better.sg, so shout out to them. They actually kind of these people are actually like product people, tech people who actually did their own studies within their own companies, right? So one of the workshops that they actually hosted was something about elderly, and then a lot of the solutions that they actually went around with the elderly persona was the fact that they want to save money. And they also did mention that it's not just elderly who want to save money, it's really just the general audience of Singapore. I mean, it's really higher cost of living nowadays, so we got to kind of save money as we can, right? Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm asking this like this. I'm straying away from the question now, but again, I just very curious to understand. Besides, like I think this makes total sense, and in fact, I think that's kind of in our blood to do that. But beyond, what's that? The user behavior of, sorry, I guess the habit of wanting to save money. What other unique things you all have seen from, I guess, Singaporean users?
uh, Say for example, CDC vouchers. Like, say for example,
Oh, okay.
because it's in denominations of I'm not sure, 510. Like there are certain
510.
amounts that to
Ah.
kind of withdraw, right? So I know I do hear of like people in the market kind of saying, oh, can I just spend $10 and then like liquidate the remaining money that I don't use? So it's like a pattern that I observe. Yeah, I mean that's just an example that I can think of. Yeah, in a way, it's like trying to save that money, right? That you don't actually get because you have to spend that $10 and you can't really get back the money that you don't use. Yeah.
Actually, on that note, I'm gonna throw in one thing, and okay, this might be more maybe because I'm a guy. So I'm not sure if y'all heard of this. What do they call it? I think it's some NS allowance. Sorry, not allowance, but like some money that they dispense to this account. I believe it's called NS Life or something. Okay, I don't recall the exact name, but basically they give this vouchers for guys who serve national service before who currently are NS men. Uh, and on that same note, right? I think the one big conversation that I've seen around this account that you're given, right? You're supposed to use it and like scan like the pay now QR codes, like purchase things. But the main thing I've seen is Singaporean users, in this case, like guys, right, trying to find ways to hack around it. That means they go to I believe it's Sheng Siong. You go to Sheng Siong, and then there's this like process where you can scan some QR code, and then you can withdraw it as money instead. So by right, you're not supposed to do that, I guess. But because it's meant to as a voucher lah to encourage. But I think it speaks into the sense of like Singaporean users where the most convenience or like the most path of least resistance. We really want to just get there with the least with the most convenience, least friction. I feel like it. I feel like it. We're less tolerant to bad UX. I feel.
Interesting.
Any thoughts? Or did I basic scared you guys off with that new revelation of this voucher thing? It's a real thing. You can look up at it. Like you search Sheng Siong NS Man, you probably will get it somewhere.
No, it's just interesting because like it's amazing how when you actually launch a product, people actually try to find other ways to kind of get even more value than what you can offer. So it's like, for example, if you sign up for an account for like a free trial at some place, and then you realize that, can I, the unique identifier is probably your mobile number. What if I were to get another SIM card to kind of create another account, but with the same human body, right? To kind of hack around. So it's very interesting that like people see the value of the product, but they still want to like maximize how else can I even save more. Yeah. That's not really considered hacking, right? I don't know. It's saving money, I guess. Yeah. Smarter way.
Or
Like
maybe
we want more.
Yeah.
We
I
just
feel
keep
like it's
like, if something is good, we want more of it, and we'll find
yes.
any way to get that.
But how do designers react to this? In a sense that okay, I guess the right sentiment for this would be your users behave unexpected behavior essentially. They do things that you did not expect. Like you designed for this certain UI with a certain user experience. You had this beautiful flow in your mind, but then the users decided to just shortcut the whole thing. I guess in real life that there is this representation where I don't know if in your neighborhoods, right? Sometimes let's say you walk to a train station, there will be like this pavement, like roundabout pavement that you can walk, and then people walk
Yes.
across the grass field. They just create their own path for the shortcut. But how do you react to that as designers?
Great, man. I think it's a very, very good thing that happens because to me, like your pathway, that whole situation, is basically feedback to us that we have to iterate it again. So I wouldn't see it as like a bad thing. I see it as like, oh, we might have missed that out. Yeah, so it's always a continuous process. I think one thing that designers tend to do is really not to beat ourselves up and really see more of like an opportunity to iterate it further. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything on
because I
that,
think
Jing?
like one thing like to add on to what she mentioned is that I think what we don't want is no feedback at all. So having at least that form of shortcut, we kind of can maybe extend to further understand their behavior. If not, is to base that off and make even more refined assumptions. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure how to continue from there. Okay, I guess my last question was about migration, but I think I went way uh, out in terms of topics already. Uh,
Oh,
but yeah, I think this
if I
is.
can, sorry. I
Go ahead,
just
go ahead,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
share like in terms of the migration thing, I actually recently experienced one with OCBC's Pay Anyone. So it's like a DBS Pay lah, but they had a separate app for users to make payment through like scanning QR codes. So I think they were phasing out this app and combining it with the OCBC app, which I didn't. Why not? Okay. Do you know something about it, or
No,
you had experienced it
the
as
pain
well?
oozing into me as you're talking about it. I know what you're gonna
Mhm.
say, but please go ahead.
So initially, like when I was very used to paying with the OCBC Pay Anyone app, they were starting to prompt me to go to the OCBC app to make payment instead. But actually, I realized that the feature of scanning, which I use every day because I buy lunch at the hawker center, right? So that feature is quite hidden. So even though they prompted me to go to the OCBC app, I always go back to the Pay Anyone because I can access the scanning at a click of a button. But then for the OCBC app, I have to go quite deep into it. So it was after a while, they keep prompting me, but I still keep reverting back to the Pay Anyone app until one day they completely phased out the Pay Anyone app and I couldn't log in at all. Then at that point I knew where to go because I'm familiar that OCBC has that feature, and I realized that they brought that function of scanning the QR code right up front to the homepage. So another thing about what I didn't like about the old OCBC app is that once you log in, you can see your balance. So to me, it's like, oh, whenever I log in, like people behind me can see my bank account balance. I was like not comfortable with it. But I guess they had chance to do UX research about it, and now they have the scanning option before you log in. So once you log in, you are brought straight to the scanning feature without showing you your bank account balance. So I think that was like a very pleasant experience of being like migrated to the new central super app for OCBC. So I think they did that very well and it was quite interesting. Mm, yeah.
I think for that, okay, actually, I really don't want to disagree with you on this one. Okay, the earlier part, yes, I agree on the entire friction. I feel like this new
Mhm.
one still not that good. Like, okay, I'm not
Is
sure like
it?
if the experience is the same as you, but so okay, the scanning I agree. Like when I moved to it, it's already at the first page, like before you log in. But I
Mm,
realized every time you scan and you pay, they log you in right
mhm.
away. And then
Oh,
what's
yes.
after you log in? It's the balance again, which is still a point. Like I feel like okay, the other app when they had it, it was great. Just pay
Mhm,
and success and everything is done. I think that was elegant.
mm,
We're just using it as like a transaction point.
mm,
I'm not sure why they had the decision to split it out to a different app. Maybe that was also a problem of its own. Probably people also complain when they split it out as two apps and then now combined
mm,
again another friction. But now with this one, yeah, I had the same worry, but mine is more the after paying, people can now still see the amount after the
my
payment,
balance.
which yeah, I don't like it lah. I mean, it felt a bit like I know it's what do you call it, a parallel migration. I think looking from a image, it's not a big bang. Definitely, it's not a big bang.
Mm,
But it did felt like a big bang lah to me lah, because I
mm,
don't think as a user I was. Maybe I'm also because like Singaporean like most convenient path I use that. So most convenient path is just use the old app. I think it was
mm.
only until maybe like the last few days or maybe even after the last day, then I realized, oh, you cannot use this anymore. Then I switch.
Yeah.
Then I find all these problems. It feels like a big bang migration to me that in that way.
Mm,
Lah. But I agree, like, yes. Okay, some parts is definitely better. If I had to log in, if I knew I had to log in, that would have sucked, man. Like the one part I
yeah.
didn't like about it now is you have to wait. The old app, I think you didn't have to wait so much to like unlock, to do
Is
this,
it?
to do that. Now I think that there's some waiting time, right? For me, at least for me, lah, I have to first load the OCBC app. Then they will ask me for okay, either you can log in via your password and use 2FA, or you can use your I think the biometric, right, which is let's say your
Mm,
fingerprint. Then after that, you have to do the scan. Then scan, you'll go into the page where they'll ask you, is this amount you no, they'll ask you how much you want to pay. You
mm,
key in the amount, say press yes. then you drag that whatever slider, then you do this. Like it's like I'm trying to pay money. I'm not trying to like solve, like it's not rocket science. There's like 10 steps now to do this. I don't know. I
Yeah,
still
actually that's
feel
true.
it
I didn't
can be better.
realize the speed. Mm.
So
Hopefully
now
they'll
I
get
guess
on that.
mm. So
Oh no,
again,
go ahead. No, go ahead. No, I'm
oh,
just saying that hopefully they get to work on this after this.
mm,
Yeah.
I
No,
think
go
as a
ahead.
user, I kind of work around that by, let's say, like, if I'm going for Cai Fan, right? I order, like,
Mm.
the regular two vegetable, one meat. On the third thing that I order, right, I already start logging into the app and just preparing for it already. Then I walk to the front and just scan
Same.
it. Cause I don't want, like, I feel bad for the guy. I stand out there for like 2 minutes trying to log in, and then he's just waiting for me while the other people are waiting at the Cai Fan queue for me to pay up. It feels bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, I agree. Like I think this it does highlight maybe some migration patterns where probably more user feedback maybe would have helped it better. Lah. But on that
Mm.
note, yeah, I think there's been a lot of great sharings today. I actually wrote down a lot of learnings from here. And I picked up, I think, a new sense of appreciation in terms of, like, from designers, what you all see uh pertaining whether to simply go, or any other migrations to user experience that users might be impacted by if you don't do things properly lah. Thank you guys so much in terms of the interesting insights and even some stories here and there. Again, I don't, I think as an engineer I don't get to talk to designers too much, but I'm really appreciative that you guys were essentially like changing a lot of like what I'm thinking about, more than just looking at it as an engineer, but looking at it as a designer as well, like what you guys might be interested or worried about. Thank you guys for
Thanks for
joining me
having
today.
us.
Yeah.
We gain a lot of perspective from you too.
Mm.
Okay, so before we end off, just for the audiences listening in, just mentioning about socials. If you guys like this content, do go to our LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. Where this video, this stream or podcast itself is being recorded. And then yeah, do reach out to me if you want to find out more details about this. And also, I do this thing called Tech Walks at the side, and I do invite people once in a while. Okay, no, I invite people all of the time, but yeah, I do it once in a while. So if you're interested, yeah, let me know. Usually I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, and that's the end. That's the end of our sharing today. So thank you all for listening in, and thank you to my two guests for joining us today and sharing with us all of your insights. Thank you guys so much. See you around. Bye bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.